Bill, and I'm glad you're here. We're going to take a look at what we call conductors and insulators, different kinds of materials that allow us to control where electricity goes. Now you remember, we're looking at electricity as the motion of electrons that are on the outside of an atom to another atom and another atom and another atom. Well, some kinds of atoms don't really care if electrons come and go. And we call those conductors because they allow the electrons to flow from atom to atom. Other kinds of atoms don't like to let the electrons go. They kind of keep them stuck on the surface, and so the electrons cannot really flow from atom to atom in these kinds of things, and these are what we call insulators. Insulators are things like plastic and rubber. They don't let electricity go through them. And conductors are things like copper and aluminum, almost all the metals, and some other kinds of materials that allow electrons to just flow right along. Now, putting aside our models for picturing the atomic scale, let's take a look at one of the fundamental uses of conductors and insulators. This is a piece of very ordinary wire, the same kind that's used to connect up the sockets and lights in your house and things in your car engine and pieces of robots. There's an inside made of metal, and that is a conductor, and electrons can flow all over the place in that conductor. And then this green material is a plastic layer on the outside. It's like a tube around the metal, and this plastic is an insulator. And so we can put electricity into the metal here and take it out of the metal here, and we know that because the insulator is completely covering that metal in this middle part, the electricity isn't going to hop off partway through. If you think of a garden hose, it's a tube, and you can put water in one end and take water out the other end, and it's not going to come out in the middle unless you have a leak in the hose. Another way to think of it is a river. Water is flowing down that river bank, but it doesn't go off to the side because the banks of the river are high enough that the water can't get over them. So that's kind of the same thing that's going on here. The water is going to flow where it can, and it's going to stay within places where there's some kind of boundary that keeps it from flowing that way. And in a wire, electricity can flow along this metal just fine, but even if we cross the wire like that, the electricity can't just hop from here to here because the insulator wrapped around the outside keeps it in the metal on the inside of the wire. We will get into more interesting examples of how we use conductors and insulators to control how electricity moves, but that's the basics. Some things conduct electricity, some things insulate electricity and don't allow it to flow, and that's how we control where electricity goes. AstuteKidDotCom